All right. It looks like we're back on. Yep. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what happened. The internet does some glitches sometimes. Those are the dangers and challenges of going live. But we're back. Hopefully, you guys will pop back into this new stream, and and we can continue from where we were before. So I'm sorry about that. Oh, all right. Amaris is back in. All right, thanks. I'm glad everyone was able to make it. Sorry about the rough start this morning. I don't know why it's the internet's tripping on us. I turned off my Wi-Fi and I'm going for my cellular, which is usually a safe bet when I'm live streaming. But for some reason, we're having some glitches. I don't know if it's my phone, if it's YouTube, but either way, we're back. We're drawn. Thanks for coming back. Let us continue. Anyway, what I was kind of saying before is trying to really separate shadow, light, and halftone, or shadow, light, and detail. And when I say detail, I am talking about the halftones. And just the fact that I was not thinking of detail as halftone before, and now I'm starting to. And just trying to be more aware of these things as I go in and I draw my pages, as I'm defining my shadow areas. You know, I'm always trying to experiment not just with my tools, but with how I mentally approach a page. Because I do think that how we conceive of a page, how we're mentally interpreting it, makes a big difference in how it turns out. Because we all have sort of a mental picture in our mind of what we hope our page is going to come out like, any art we make, what we hope we're going to achieve. And the mental picture that we're drawing and that we're pursuing defines what our results are going to be. I mean, it doesn't define it permanently, because I mean, obviously there's a lot of leeway in the sense that there's what we want to draw and then what we're capable of pulling off. But I do mean that what we aspire to create very strongly influences what our results are. If we're looking to make a very slick, kind of a 90s image comic blog, that if we're looking for something that's kind of rough and indie, if we're looking for something that's a little bit Hernandez Brothers, or sort of a solid, dark, blocky Mike Mignola feel, all of those things, what we're trying to achieve is going to very much influence what we do achieve. I know that sounds like common sense, but it really isn't, because a lot of times, I know for myself, I'm guilty of just sitting down at the page and just starting to throw lines down. And it is I enjoy drawing. I don't know about you guys. Some people get real anxious about it. They get nervous. But I love it. So anytime I can find to draw, it's a good time for me. I like just putting on a good podcast, putting on some music, and just losing myself in that process. And when I do that, sometimes I'm very much in danger of not thinking about what I'm doing. It's real easy to just be drawing, having fun, and not saying, well, wait, should this line be here? What am I saying with this form, with this shape, with this tone? Ion Rocks is back. I see Sierra Studios is in the chat too. Thanks for stopping by, Sierra. So yeah, it is personally challenging for me. I won't say that's challenging for all artists, because everybody's different. Some people may make very conscious, careful decisions about every line they make. That has its own set of problems, because that's when you can become a little bit too neurotic and overthink each piece. And overthinking it just means that sometimes, in my mind, it comes out a little bit too stiff. Let's see here. Different things like, oh wait, instead of making this a hard line, I've got to feather it a bit more because it's curving around the brim of the hat. So little things that I looked at the way I originally rendered it, and I'm all, wait, that's not really right. And I have to come back in and make some adjustments and compensations. In a way, it's kind of like playing a Zen game with yourself, where you're trying to think and not think at the same time. You're trying to lose yourself in the process, put energy into the page, and at the same time, you're still trying to be aware of what each line is saying, what it's describing. I'll tell you something else that really bothered me about a comic page I was working on. And I don't like to be down on my own work. I'm critical of my own work, which is tapping on it saying, oh, this sucks. But I was finishing a page yesterday, and it just surprised me how bad the hands were on that page. Particularly because, as I've mentioned in the past, I take classes with Carl Ganas, his heads, hands, and feet class. And I thought, all this time I've been taking these classes, and these hands just look just butchered. And yeah, for as much time as I spend studying it, I felt like I wasn't putting the work that I did in class into the page. I think that's another thing that I'm really trying to be conscious of as of late is, am I using all of that knowledge? Because I mean, I share my figure drawing work and my analysis of the work, me going back and redrawing figure drawings from class, trying to look at what I did right, what I did wrong, what could be better, where were there holes in my understanding of the human form. But I realized that I have not been pouring as much of that or translating as much of it to the comic page as I thought I was. I mean, to any certain degree, if you're drawing, anytime you're working on it, it helps you understand form. It should help you understand form better. Form, volume, proportion. If you're drawing a human form, or even if you're not, you use form and volume, maybe not proportion. But to a certain degree, I have not consciously been pouring that into the comics work. And I want to get more of that in there. I guess for as much talk as I say about just do the best you can and have fun with the process and keep learning, I think a little bit hungry to improve faster. And maybe that means spending a little bit more books. Maybe in some future videos, instead of drawing me trying to fix bad figure drawings, I may do a few master studies from maybe a Loomis book or the Walter Reed's The Figure. I mean, I've done Bridgman tons of times. I think the most recent one I did was my ode to George Bridgman. I think that one might have been just me going through his books. I can't remember if I actually drew from a Bridgman book or not. But yeah, that studying versus creating thing, they go hand in hand. It's not like it's a either or. Well, I think I've been treating it as an either or, and what it really needs to be is a yin yang. You create, and then you study to make the creation better, and then you create and you study to make the creation better, and they continue to go in and out and weave in and out of each other. Let's see, a few comments in the chat. See, Iron Rock says, I get pretty anxious. I never used to be. Oh, he said that Pentel Food Ultra Fine that I got is fun to use. It's a food brush, which is I don't know if it's food or fude, but it's a Japanese brush pen. Matter of fact, I was just using one of my Japanese brush pens the other day. Let me see. I was gonna bring it up on the screen, but I think it's on the dining room table with the sketchbook that I was using there. So the other thing about being an artist is you have to be careful because you will lose, not lose, but you end up leaving sketchbooks all over the place and art tools all over the place. And there's some that are in the bedroom, some that are at the dining room table, some that are in my drawing bag, some at the my drawing desk. There's times in which I have to say, I expect something to be right at my fingertips, and I have to turn around and be like, oh wait, where is that? So, but yeah, it's a pretty cool brush pen. I've got one too. He and I had been talking about brush pens when we were hanging out, getting coffee a while back. You know, I see you also said that you like to doodle. I don't doodle as much as I used to, and I want to get back into that habit. Like just filling up a page, filling up an art book or a sketchbook with just marks, figures, heads, hands, creatures, just whatever I can pull out of my mind, in my head. So there is a certain unconsciousness. There's a certain joy in letting your subconscious just run wild, just letting forms come out of whatever drawing tool you're using. You know, speaking of changing in the sense of it used to be I would start a page and I would just do this silhouette outline, like the bare outline of the hat and the figure, and then I would go through and do the next figure and do all of the bare outline. But I'm definitely doing a lot more of spotting all the blacks or most of the blacks in a particular page before moving to the next in a particular panel, excuse me, before moving to the next panel. You know, last week I posted a instead of doing a live stream, I posted a video, just one of my old time lapse videos, kind of the short 5-10 minute ones, like I used to do on the channel, and I enjoyed it. I've got a bunch of those saved up, and I'm going to be doing more as exclusives for the Patreon subscribers. But that said, I think I'm going to try and get back into the habit of doing at least one of those a month, just as a change of pace. Because right now, what I seem to notice, I know this is getting a little bit inside baseball-y for people that are just caring about the drawing and not really care about like what artists do in terms of getting their work out on the internet. But what I have been noticing is that a lot more people, there, the people that show up to the live stream and consistently watch and hang out, that's a pretty consistent viewer base, and it grows a little bit each week. But what I notice is that people don't necessarily go back and watch the live streams as much as they go back and watch the older time lapse videos. Now that may also change as I continue to do more of these because I've only shifted over for a few months in terms of really doing the live streams regularly. So that may change over time. But I realize it is helpful for my channel to grow when people go back and watch some of the older videos. I enjoy doing the live streams because I'm here. I don't really have to have as much of a planned topic. I mean, obviously, I'm talking way more to you guys in like an hour that we're on together than I do in a little 5 minute, 10 minute video. But that said, a lot of it is just hanging out with you guys, and I can just work and then just respond to questions you have. So mentally, I feel like I don't have to prepare as much, but it seems like the ones that get rewatched are sort of the older time-lapse videos. And I'm not sure why that is. I enjoy watching other creators' live streams, but I enjoy putting them on and listening to people talk while they draw. So just like you guys, I do the same thing. But I am thinking about trying to get back to doing at least one of those time lapses per month. And probably later today, I'm gonna create a new video because I haven't created my my Patreon exclusive video for December yet. And last month's was a the art book tour. And this month, what I think I'm gonna do is actually give an art bag tour because I have a bag that I carry with me to work. That I have all my basically my what is my drawing supply gear when I'm on the road. I learned a while back, several years ago actually, that we all deal with procrastination, and the easiest way to not be creative is to say, oh, well, I don't have my tools with me, or I need to be at my drawing table to work. And so I basically got all of the tools that I felt like I would need in order to draw anywhere, and I have them in my bag. So I was going to do a little video tour showing what I carry around with me on a given day. And I will probably, that one's definitely going to be shorter than the art book tour, because the art book tour, that was over an hour. That was a pretty long video, and I really don't think I've got so much in my bag that it's going to take that long. It'll probably be like 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. It might be 15 minutes, I don't know. I always say that I'm going to do something short, and then I go on talking for like a half hour. So take it at face value. But I know, live it this way, I know it won't be any shorter than 5 minutes, but I seriously doubt it'll be longer than 15. Anyway, I'll be sure to also do a preview of that video for so for everybody else. If you're not subscribed, there'll still be a preview of that, so you can get an idea of what the subscribers will be getting. But being that it'll be a shorter video, the preview will probably only be like maybe a minute, maybe 30 seconds. Like a teaser trailer. Yeah, I've been going back and forth when I draw Lucifer between deciding whether to do black on his upper lip or just leave it kind of open. I may just add tone in there when I'm adding it in Photoshop. Because there's some panels I've done, and it really depends not so much on having just a rule for how I draw Lucifer's lips, so much as just paying attention to what the lighting conditions are. Because there are some lighting conditions that are going to be sharp enough, harsh enough, that they are going to give him a shadow on his upper lip. But if I do it in a lighting condition that is not as sharp, it's going to look like he's wearing lipstick, which I noticed there were some panels where I just instinctively just put shadow on his upper lip, and it did look like lipstick. And I'm like, well, that looks weird. That's not what I was going for. I mean, yeah, he's supposed to be sort of the most beautiful archangel, but I don't know if he's going to be wearing some lipstick. Maybe he might. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. Maybe Lucifer's a sweet transvestite. Yeah, this panel. Yeah, that's interesting. Is now that I've changed my approach as opposed to doing all the silhouettes first and then going in and doing the blacks. Now that I'm spotting the blacks, the panel for the most part feels close to finished when I get done with just this first pass. And it's pretty far along, which is pleasing. Let's see. Iron Rock says on the chat, I used to carry around a clipboard with just copy paper and 8.5 by 11, which I think is A4, and just kept drawing. Used to have a real passion for it. Well, passions come, passions go. I generally always feel a desire to draw, but lately, like during the holidays, I've had a little bit of time off from work, and I thought I was gonna draw so much. Like I would just wake up every day, work out, and then just draw, draw, draw. I have not been doing that. I have not lost the love or the passion for drawing, but what I have done is said, I really don't get enough rest on a regular basis. And I've talked about that before, how I really do feel like if you don't take care of your body, you're not going to be creative or as creative as you'd like to be. And so, as opposed to sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night, I've been sleeping 8 or 9. I've been sleeping 9 or 10 hours a night, or sleeping 8 hours and then taking a nap in the middle of the day. And I've realized just how under rested I have been. So I've been making it a point to get a lot more rest over the past few days. And the cost of that, the sacrifice, is the fact that I thought I was going to be close to done with this issue by the time I've got to go back to work after New Year's. And it looks like I'm still going to have a little bit left to do. Like I thought I would at least be starting with the gray tones in Photoshop, and I'd be done with the inking. And speaking of which, I am curious whether you guys want to see the gray toning process, because I think that it's one thing to watch someone color. I think coloring is very, very interesting, but my book is in black and white. So it's just me doing gray tones in Photoshop, and I don't know how interesting that will be for you guys. So when I'm at the stage of doing my gray tones I'm still trying to decide whether I want to do it in Photoshop or in a Clip Studio Paint, because I have both, and I've been meaning to start using Clip Studio Paint more often. It's just one of those things where you get into the habit of using certain tools, certain shortcuts, and I know Photoshop so well and use it so much that I'm just hesitant to really dive in. But everyone raves about Clip Studio Paint. I bought it, I have it, I should start using it. But the question I was asking was not so much about the tool, so much as when I'm doing my gray tones in Photoshop, for you guys watching the live stream, I can set it up so I can stream from my desktop computer so you guys can watch, or I can just go ahead and do my gray tones, and while when I do my live streams, I can continue to either work on figure drawing stuff, or I can start thumbnailing the final issue of Morning Star. So I can move on to that while I'm still finishing up the gray toning phase in Photoshop. So I don't know what you guys would like to see. Maybe I might do a couple of episodes where I'm doing the gray toning so you can actually watch and decide whether you're interested or not. You might decide that you're fine with watching the gray toning because you're more interested in just having the conversations that we have while we're on here, and you really don't care what specifically I'm working on. I guess I'm leaving it open because I'm not absolutely determined one way or the other in terms of what I want to do. If I was, I wouldn't give you a choice. I would just say, hey, we're going to be doing gray tones. But then also, my general instinct is if I'm not done with the phase, then that's what I'm working on until that phase is done. Like my buddy Vince Moore, who shows up every once in a while, he took over running our art group Coffee and Comics from that Carl Altstetter had originally started. And Vince, like, he'll post what the theme is for each get together, because in theory we get together and we sketch and we draw. It really ends up being a bunch of artists and writers just sitting around having coffee and good food and shooting the shit. But in theory, each get together has has a theme. If it's Christmas, it might be The Grinch. If there's a new X-Men movie coming out or a new Marvel superhero movie, then it might be that thing. Like maybe it'll be when Infinity War was coming out, it was an Avengers theme thing. And the joke for me is that my theme is the same every month, which is finishing my damn comic. And I bring that up only because of what I was saying before, like my tendency is to focus on just what is the project in front of me, or what is the step, what is the phase in front of me creatively. If that phase is inking, then I'm not doing anything until I'm done inking. So there is a part of me that does not want to move on to another phase, say starting to thumbnail the next issue, until this issue is completely in the can. So I don't know, that may play a part in my decision making. We'll see. But hey, I'm opening it up to you guys because I'm actually curious what you think. Let's see. Sierra Studios says, it's not about passion for doodling for me. It's like breathing to me. It's just an automatic thing. And when I do it, my mind has idle time. Well, that I can very much agree with. Hang on, let me take a sip of water here. My throat's a little bit dry. Well, you know, it's funny. The idea of feeling like your mind is breathing and relaxing. My wife has been meditating a lot over the past few months. And I used to meditate, not very long, and I didn't do really any guided meditation. I just found a book. In fact, here's a book recommendation for you. If you're thinking about getting into meditation or trying it, but you're not really sure where to start and you want to do something that's pretty easy, a book I started with was called the 8-Minute Meditation. Because in 8 minutes, that's a pretty relatively small amount of time. Even if you hated meditation, you can put up with it for 8 minutes. And I found that, first off, I didn't hate meditation. I enjoyed it quite a bit. But having it limited to such a short time period allowed you to just kind of like get to the key focus. What are you trying to learn, do, figure out? What are the benefits you're hoping to get from the meditation? And it just allows you to it allows you to focus for a short period of time, because a lot of people think that it's sitting there and trying to keep your mind clear for hours and hours, and that would be difficult. But doing something like just relaxing for 8 minutes, being still, being present, being aware of your thoughts, being aware of your body. And I had mentioned to my wife, one of the reasons why I think I fell off from meditation and didn't stick with it was not because I didn't like it, but because artists in general, I think, spend a lot of time in a meditative state. The act of putting down these strokes, there is something that happens with each stroke you put down where you're both being mindful, yet letting energy flow. It's a twofold thing. You're both extremely focused, and it's like you're holding something tightly with a fist and yet letting it go completely at the same time, which I'm repeating stuff I said earlier in the video, so there's no point in belaboring it, except for the fact that I often get caught in circular thoughts and come back and repeat the same thing over and over and over. But but life is nothing if not cyclical. But yeah, and I have been trying to get back into meditation, not so much for the drawing. Well, that's the other thing. I haven't been drawing as much as I would like on a daily basis, period, which makes me start feeling the need for meditation as well as getting back to focusing on art. But also I find that when I'm reading a book, I'm not as focused as I used to be anymore. I'm a little bit scatterbrained. It takes me a lot longer to read. Well, I'll read a paragraph or a sentence, and like halfway through, I'll start thinking about the book will remind me of other things, and I want to look up something on my phone, or I start thinking about other ideas and I have to open a Google Doc and write down the ideas that I had, because if you don't write down an idea, it doesn't exist, because you'll forget, you'll think you will remember, but they will disappear. I'm sure many of you people already know that, but if you don't write it down, it doesn't exist. You think you're going to remember, you're not going to remember. Ideas are fleeting. They are the ephemera. They are mellifluous. They just sort of, they come into your mind and then they evaporate. So I saw a few more comments in the chat. Let's see here. Ah, Yuel showed up. Hey, Yuel, how you doing? He said, I do a meditation now that I stop thinking in words and use images. That's pretty cool. In fact, there's a book I started reading called Creative Visualization, and that's got me, thinking more about meditation. And I wanted to use it specifically to help me visualize what I want to get on the page better. Some people use creative visualization kind of like The Secret, in terms of that idea of putting intentions into the universe, clearly visualizing your goals and trying to manifest them. I would love to be able to do that. But for me, the more important step is just making the art better, is me really being able to see in my mind's eye what I'm trying to say, because I manifest it once when I draw the thumbnail. I manifest it again when I do my layouts. And the final manifestation is really the inking, even though I come in and clean up and adjust things in Photoshop. But what the things that I get down on the page are still only fragments of what's truly in my mind. This page, this panel right here, even though I feel like this is a pretty good portrait of Lucifer, it doesn't live and breathe the way it does in my mind. And I think that that's part of the artistic journey, is just trying to constantly reach out to connect what's in our heads with what's on the page, to really just pour ourselves into it. And that takes time. It takes practice. It takes experience. It takes searching and seeking. So I try to be open to all those things, but I think that meditation might be able to help me get closer to that. Let's see here. But yeah, that idea of meditating in images instead of words, I like that. I think I may try to incorporate that into my practice. Iron Rock says, I was meditating for up to 5 hours a day. It felt like I was born to meditate. You had a real passion for it. Well, you know what? Maybe when you find you said, alas, it is gone. Well, you're rediscovering your passion for drawing and doodling. Hopefully, you can also rediscover a passion for meditation. I find the mistake that I have made, both with meditation and with other meditation, exercise, stretching, all of these things are things that I should be doing on a regular basis. And my bad habit is that I frequently fall off, and I only get back into the habit when I need them, when something is sore, when something hurts, or when I can't focus. And I don't think that's a good way to develop practices, because the way you develop strong habits is consistency. And only showing up when it's convenient for me to do it is not going to build a strong habit. Okay, I'm going to have to get rid of this line here, because I realize I just made a really crappy tangent. This arm comes around, it folds behind his waist, but it's folding behind at the same point that I have the waist twisting, and there's a twist in his body. So I think what I may need to do, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a corrective line. Instead, this arm is going to be coming in down here, and you're gonna see the top of it over here. So I'm just gonna shift the arm a little bit lower. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come out, when this dries a little bit, I'm gonna come in with whiteout, and this line that's inside the muscle, I'm gonna white that out. So instead, this bend is gonna be framed on either side by the arms, by the two lines of the arm going around it, as opposed to the arm going right into that bend and making that tangent. Those are the kind of things that I like to be conscious of when I'm drawing. I'd like to think I've gotten better at catching tangents, but in a perfect world, I would have caught that line before I made it instead of after. But you know what? Better late than never. At least I saw the mistake and I can take action to correct it. I think that that's one of the first steps in terms of artistic growth, is just being able to see exactly what's wrong. It's one thing to just say, "Oh, this drawing doesn't look right." And again, this is me really repeating shit I've been saying for age. It's one thing to just feel that a drawing is bad or wrong. It's another thing to actually accurately say, "This line is in the wrong spot because of this reason, and if I move it here, it will fix it." And I would say that I am still doing a lot of artistic growth. I'm still doing a tremendous amount of learning. But if there's one thing I do genuinely feel proud of, it's that I'm getting better at identifying tangents, and I'm getting better at seeing these mistakes and correcting them when they're there. So that's one part on my artistic journey that I will say, all right, I've made progress. I will never say, oh, well, I'm done, I figured it out, because I think that way lies the kiss of death. When you start thinking you know it all, you stop growing, you stop learning, you stop pushing. So, and I don't want to stop growing. I don't want to stop learning. The fact that I'm never going to know everything, and that I'm never going to be, I mean, there are living masters, and it would be pretty arrogant for me to think, oh, someday I'm going to be one of those. But even if I get really, really good, I don't think there's ever truly going to be a point where I'm like, oh, I know everything. I have mastered the brush, or I've mastered comic storytelling. There's always going to be new things, new tricks, new things to learn. I mean, I listen to podcasts with authors because I'm also, working on improving my writing. And a lot of times they will talk, I hear screenwriters talk about that, where they think people who don't write may think that it gets easier with each script. And well, this is mainly for feature writers. So I think with TV, there is a certain amount of proceduralness, even if you're not writing a procedural show. But I heard them say that you would think that each one gets easier, but in a way, every script that they're working on, if they're doing feature films, it's a new animal, and there's new tricks to learn. And the things that helped you on the last one, they might be useful on the new script you're working on, but you may also be out in the wilderness all over again, figuring it out. And I think that each picture I draw, I do continue to learn new things. And I love that about the artistic process. I don't think I'm starting from scratch each time, and it would be really, really hard if I were starting from scratch every time. But I also don't feel like there's going to be a point where I've got it all in my head and I know the solution to every single problem. I think that I will get better at finding the solutions quicker, or saying, oh, this is the answer. Pull this rabbit out of this hat. I think I'm starting to develop a magician's toolbox, as it were, for, let us say, manifesting artwork, manifesting images. What's funny is I feel like as I'm doing this, I'm getting better at drawing wings. And there was a process where I was drawing, I want to say maybe like 2 or 3 pages ago, and I realized the wings really weren't coming out well. And I thought I had this down, and I had to sit down and do a few studies and look at some older pages. And it's more like I had figured something out and then forgotten it, and stopped using it. And I think that's true of many different techniques or artistic approaches, where if you don't use it, you lose it. But it made me think that maybe I need to keep drawing books with angels just so I don't lose this facility I'm finally starting to get down with drawing wings. And I've never really actively sought out working on a mainstream book, but I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do Hawkman. I mean, no one's offering me any books. I would be very lucky if someone were to offer me an opportunity to do something like that. That said, I still don't know if I could even take it on because of my schedule with my day job, which I probably wouldn't be able to leave. But I was thinking just off the top of my head, Hawkman is one character who I've never even really been into that much, but he's the first guy I could think of that has wings, Hawkman and Hawkgirl. And I thought to myself, that's a mainstream book I could put this to use. That would be interesting. All right, I have not looked at the chat in a hot minute because I'm getting in that zone. So let me rinse my brush, see what you guys have been gabbing about. Oh, Ul Adams. Limitless potential in how to show and tell story. Iron Rocks says, this is a version of teaching. Do you think you have it in you to be a mentor? I don't know if you're talking to Ul Adams or if you're talking to me. I think that anybody has the potential to be a mentor. I have been told by many other teachers that the best way to learn is to teach because, surprise, surprise, some teachers know it all. Some teachers are just maybe one step ahead of their students. And they're literally constantly having to cram every night to make sure that they stay one step ahead, because as soon as their students know that they know more than their teacher, they lose all respect and credibility, and it's impossible to teach them anything. Which is interesting because I have the standpoint that I have learned quite a bit from artists that I would say may not be as experienced as I am, but still have a tremendous amount of knowledge to share and to learn. And I would like to think that I would not become arrogant enough that I wouldn't listen to somebody just because they're younger than me. Particularly because I'm getting older, and the older I get, the more artists there are that are younger than me. So if I want to keep learning, I'm gonna have to learn to listen to people that are younger than me. And what's really humbling is that there's a lot of people that are younger than me that are more experienced. Being that I've never worked full time in mainstream comics, all of the stuff I've done is indie comics. I've never worked for a major publisher. There's a lot of people younger than I am who got in right out of school. Maybe they went to like RISD or Ringling Brothers or the Kubert School, and they came out of school and got a job in comics, and they've been penciling, inking for 5 years, maybe 10 years. And here I am, like an old man, sitting out here making my indie comics on the side, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was working on a crossover for Marvel last year." You know, I would like to think that I am somebody who would stay open to what everyone has to learn. Now, in terms of me actually teaching other people, well, again, that's one of the big things I like to say about this channel, is that I feel that the thing that I have to teach is me learning out in the open, me showing my process, me struggling with things, doing things well, doing mistakes, correcting mistakes. I don't think it would be weird to consider even the relationship I have with you guys watching this video as a form of mentorship. That said, I don't know the different levels of experience everyone that's watching has. There's people I know that have watched that are friends who I know are better artists than I am, and they're just watching because they just enjoy it. I know that I watch other artists who I consider peers or more experienced than I am, and I watch not just to learn from them, but then to also just hear the pleasant conversation and camaraderie that you get when you hang out at comic conventions, when you hang out with other people. I was watching Joshua Kimball and Scott Circlin on the Artcasters, and I've got a chance to table next to Scott at a convention. Oh wait, it wasn't just I watched a couple of the Artcasts, but specifically watching one of Scott's solo videos on his channel, and we never get a chance to talk when we're at Phoenix Fan Fest or Phoenix Fan Fusion, whatever they're calling it, because it's a busy show. It's a big show. But I was just watching one of his solo videos and just thinking about how nice it was that it felt like one of the conversations that we never get to have at a convention. I think that's true of a lot of artists who do the convention circuit, that because of how busy shows are, you don't want to leave your table because you're trying to do business, you're trying to sell books. You want to be there for the people that are, if you do commissions, you want to make sure that, every time you leave your table, you feel like you're losing money to a certain degree because you're there to sell your work. And I know that there's a lot of creators that I wish I could just hang out and just shoot the shit with and never get a chance to. That was real rambly away from the idea of, do I have it in me to be a mentor? I think that mentorship really depends on the bandwidth of a person, because that's the other thing. I don't think I definitely have it within me to share everything I know about my creative process, and I enjoy doing that. I think that in terms of a formal mentorship, there has to be a certain amount of structure to it. What is the mentee expecting to get from this experience? Are they assisting the mentor with work, as a formal assistant or apprenticeship? How often are they going to be exchanging ideas or answering questions? Because that's another thing. I know that for me, the biggest thing is actually time. I know that I feel like I have very little time to even do the stuff I should be doing now. Taking on something like actually having mentor students, that's a whole nother thing. And even if it was something like an official mentorship, like a class where someone was paying me to critique their work, give them assignments and look at it, give them feedback, I would have hesitancy taking that on at this stage because, again, only so many hours in the day. I'm not finishing all the stuff I want to do right now. And the last thing I would want is to take someone's money and not provide what they were looking for. So a lot of mentorship. You know what? I've got some folks in the chat. Let me ask you guys, what does mentorship mean to you? What does mentorship look like to you? With you guys discussing amongst each other, share in the chat. Have you done a mentorship with anybody before? What was your experience? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? And again, if it's something that was a negative experience and you don't want to slag the person, feel free to leave that out, because I personally do not. I'm the type of person, I try to only say something if I have something nice to say. I'm not looking for anyone to get on here and talk about the really crappy mentor they had unless they feel like they want to share that. But I am curious to hear what you guys think and feel about mentorship, because I would say I have had many mentors in my life, but they've all been under the guise of my day job. Working in toy design, working in the graphic design industry in general, I've always worked with more experienced artists. And it's weird now that I'm sort of the old man who is kind of I still work with some very experienced, talented people, but there's also younger artists now that in a way mentor. And I'm teaching them things about design that someone who comes from an industrial background might not think about, because I'm coming at it from a more illustrative, narrative background. I'm bringing sort of what I know about comics into the products I design, at least wherever it's possible, wherever it's appropriate. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what your guys' experiences are with mentorship, if you've had any, or just like I said, what you would imagine they'd be like. Let's see. All right. So the comments in terms of do I have it in me to be a mentor? Iron Rock says yes. I'm talking to you, Jeremy. The best way to learn is to teach, and I've had several teachers say that. It would put me on a whole nother level. Well, I would like to be on a whole nother level. I think the real challenge is finding the bandwidth and how to do it. I guess it's the how to structure it so that anyone that was a mentee of mine would be getting something of value. I mean, that might be something that might be on the Patreon, because I'm going to start posting. My goal right now is to post at least one video per month. But maybe as one of the goals for the Patreon, if I reach a certain level of subscribers, then I'll start a mentor group and keep it really small. And we can figure out together what we want that group to be, how we want it to work, what kind of discussions we're going to have. So yeah, if that sounds like something you guys might be interested in, um, yeah, let me know. I think I'll go in there sometime in the next few weeks and post that as a goal on the Patreon page, because, and then it'll let you know when we get enough subscribers up there. I would have to figure out how many subscribers or what dollar amount I would want it to be before we'll do a mentorship. But yeah, that's something I think we can open up. Let's see. And UL says, it is we become the student on your shoulder. That's what it feels like. And I like that feeling. Like you guys just sort of like hanging out. And I'm like, oh, yeah, going back in. And again, I don't know if this makes a big difference to you guys, but for me, mentally, it makes a huge difference. I'm going away from the mentor thing just for a second. But now that I went in here, before I had the underside of his forearm, before it was going right into that tangent of showing his torso bending, the bottom of his rib cage, basically, him twisting and moving us, that his forearm is a little bit lower now. So the lines that make up the forearm are on either sides of that bend. Like as soon as I drew that line, that tangent bothered the hell out of me. And it might be that just conceptually, when I was sketching this out, I made a flowing line that sort of connected both of these arms and yet again, these arms, the hands are far enough apart that they're not touching. They're tied behind his back, but they're not tied together. Because those hands would be ridiculously long. They'd have hands the size of a whole nother forearm. But just the fact that I wanted to have this, that bend and not have that tangent there, that it's worthwhile to fix it. For me, I look at this and that makes me much happier just having caught that mistake. So what was I saying? Yes, Iron Rock says showing and exposing, watering the talent. UL says a teacher or another student that helps you. Oh, in terms of describing, now we're talking about what one thinks of as a mentor. A teacher or another student that helps you to gain skills in a subject. Showing and exposing, watering the talent. Yeah, those are all good things. I just realized, I'm sorry, I started wandering, my mind not wandering, but as I was reading that a second ago, I noticed that it was a little bit quiet, not quiet in terms of you guys. You guys are awesome, and I'm enjoying talking to you. I just noticed that there's only like 5 people watching, and usually we get up to like 10 or 15 during this. It might be because I posted a link when I started, before I started the live stream. I posted a link a half hour early, as I'm trying to get into the habit of doing. And it might be that people are coming in trying to get to the live stream, and they keep going to the first link, the first live stream that crapped out. And then there might be people who, like, they didn't necessarily come to go on the new stream that I restarted. So I just realized, I'm like, we're missing some people. So, not that I feel I'm here to show up for you guys. You guys can listen whenever you want. That's why the replay is on here. That's why it's on YouTube. But I do find it interesting when some people that I'm used to seeing show up don't necessarily make it. And I'm like, it's a little, I don't feel slighted, but it is a slight crowd. But you know what that means? That means it's intimate. That's more Jeremy for you guys. Let's see. Iron Rock says, this was a surprise. I was in the car when I started listening. And Sura Studio says, that is exactly what happened to me. When you guys say that's exactly what happened to me, you mean leveling up when you were are you talking about leveling up by teaching, or are you talking about listening to the other live stream? Oh yeah, or following the link to it. Yeah, I mean, technology is an imperfect thing. It does. I mean, I'm not. We live in a world where I can sit here and talk to people around the world while I'm drawing and sharing my work. I feel like I'm in no position to bitch. We're lucky to have this opportunity and this ability to connect with each other. So, if every once in a while, it gets a little wonky, I can live with that. All right. Have to be careful because now I'm at that stage where in this panel, my every instinct is saying, all right, you're done with this panel, let it go, move on to something else. Or move on, not to something else, but on to the next panel. And I think we all have that where we know we should stop and you're like, one more line. One more line. You know what? I know that it's only something that I'm throwing on here at the end. We're down to 56 minutes, so I'll probably be on here for we'll round out the hour. So in the next 5, maybe 10 minutes, I'll wrap it up. So if you guys have any other questions you want to throw out, then we can we'll wrap it up. But I think that I'm gonna change the name of this. No, I was gonna say that I was gonna change it to one more line, but the fact that I called it Shadow, Light, and Detail 2 will connect it to the fact that the first live stream crapped out, and that now we've got this, and that people will be able to, who started to watch the first one, went to the link in the first one, will say, oh, this is the continuation of it. So maybe I will do a video next week, and I'll call that one more line. About that feeling when we know we should stop, you should walk away. You know that it's as good as it's gonna get, but you just want to draw just one more thing, just one more line, one more figure. And that's what gets us in trouble. So I think I'll do flat black here, and then a little bit of not cross hatching, but sort of a contoured shadow. So like it'll be hatched, not really hatched lines, but lines like these, almost feathered on the underside. And I don't know what it is, but my throat really seems to be closing up. I don't know if my allergies are kicking in or what. Feeling a little froggy. Oh yeah, Sira Studio said the first video is distracting me. And UL says, how do you know when to go dark? I can't see I can see the image I want, but I can't see how to shade it. Well, that is something that, well, it takes a little bit of experience because on one hand, you're doing it observationally. On the other hand, you are in fact, well, on one hand, you're making it up in terms of what tells the story you want to. So lighting has 2 elements to it, descriptive and compositional. The descriptive element is literally saying, what's the light side? What's the dark side? What's the halftone? The compositional element is, do these shadow shapes give it a certain mood? Do you have a light mood, a dark mood, serious mood? Now, for instance, so let's take a look at this image right here. So it has a strong lighting coming from the left side on this image. This side of his face is all in shadow. So I am going to turn off my light here. So let's say now, if I bring my lights down, so I take this little head, and you can look at it, you can very clearly see, bring this a little bit, you know what? This will work better if I use a larger head. Chacow! Monster skull. So, you can very clearly see when you look at this figure, like if you look at it, let me grab something that is flat. Okay, so here's a Post-it. It's a flat object. Now if you notice, if I turn it this way so it's facing the light, it's very bright. If I turn it kind of towards you, it's kind of half-tony, it's neutral. If I turn it away, it turns almost black. When you think about what to make dark and what to make light, you want to think describing the form first, then you want to think compositionally second. Or if the composition is really important, in a way you can't really separate description from composition, because if you describe the form but it's boring, it doesn't tell a story, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't help you is what I mean. What you want is you want composition and form to be unified. So if you were to describe this exactly in terms of everything that's dark is what's facing away, quick lesson in reflected light there. See, the light's reflecting off of this, making it bright. Dark, bright. Not because I'm shining a light, but because the light is reflecting off of another object. Make the reflected light green, because now it's the green side. I was having the back side in there. That's not important. That's going to make this messy. My point is that I started by saying that compositional light and descriptive light are two separate things. But you really, in terms of picture making, when I say picture making, I don't just mean drawing like doing a study, but when you're telling a story, whether it's in a single image or in a comic, you want your composition and your lighting and your descriptive lighting to be unified, meaning that if you pose your figure and you draw it observationally, and these shadows, which they look cool in this figure, but that's because it's a skull. Skulls look cool. But let's say it didn't look cool, the pattern of the dark and the light. Then what you would do is you're like, well, can I turn the figure this way? It's facing the light a little bit more, and it makes it a more interesting pattern. Now it's got kind of a T shape. Can you turn it away? And now it's almost like, I'm trying to think abstractly what this form is. There is something going on here abstractly in terms of it being this broad plane, but then having this piece of shadow that comes in. But basically, one, buy a skull. If you can find a cheap one on Amazon, I grabbed the big one because you can see what I'm saying better if I have it really big in front of the camera. But you can buy, this thing is part of a $10 toy, a little Mr. Bones I bought, I think at Toys R Us years ago, and it was a full skeleton, but it was like a tiny little guy. It doesn't matter whether you have a tiny little skull like this, whether you have a big one like this, whether you've got one in between, but buy a skull. And then what you want to do is, in terms of figuring out what to make dark and what to make light, light it. That's what doing studies are about. It's not just going to figure drawing class and drawing models. That's why when you see a still life, painting fruit is very difficult because you've got different types of fruit skins. Some are more reflective, some are more translucent, and light travels through them. I have never done a fruit study, and now I'm intimidated because I have a better understanding of how difficult it really is. You've got all of these different colors, translucencies, and the actual composition of a bunch of elements together. But the point being is you can take any object and you can light it the way you want to. And you can just have one lamp or two lamps, or I can turn this light off and turn this lamp on and make the lighting from this side. The point is that if you don't know how to light it, start by just lighting a version of the object. And that would also mean, let's see. Well, I can't find my little action figure guy. All right, I can't find the guy, but the point is what I just did with the skull, you can do that with an action figure or a group of action figures. You can light them, you can compose them, you can position them so that you can, light your object and see how light actually looks in real life on that object. And that's your starting point. Once you have that starting point, you can decide. We'll go back to the skull for a second, just so that, let's say I had an action figure instead of this skull. You can put that character in a pose. You know what? It really is worth me finding that figure because I'm OCD and I feel like it'll describe the what I'm trying to communicate a little bit better. Let me just take a second and see if I can find it. All right, bingo. I know that made for scintillating, stunning podcasting or webcasting or live streaming, whatever the hell I'm doing. Oh, no, sorry to bore you with that little hunt, but I feel like it was worth it only because I think with a figure, you can kind of see the idea of composition versus form. Not versus, because I think I'll show you what I mean when I say that I'm trying to unite them. You guys get the picture, but me showing it with this figure, this is what I mean when I talk about changing either the composition or the lighting to fit what you want. Let's say you've got this guy and he's blocking the light from his face. So again, you could just do this with any old action figure. You can buy a mannequin online. You can even use those little wooden mannequins. And you don't need to hold it while you're drawing. You can pose it, take a photo of it, and then keep the photo by your side, either on your phone or a device, on your screen, print it out, whatever you want, but have it there as reference while you're working. But let's say this was a page or a panel of comic, and I took this picture for reference. Now I look at it, and if I were to just simply draw all the lighting the way it's done here, let's say that for some reason I just feel like this lighting is a little bit too boring, or it doesn't describe what I want to. Maybe I want it to be more overhead for some part of the story. Then maybe what I do is I change the position of the light. That's less dramatic. or maybe that's where I started. I started with something like this, and I'm all, oh, well, that's what it would look like in real light overhead, but I need it to be dramatic, so I bring it lower. Maybe I also decide, oh, I really want to see the character's eyes more, so I may position it like this so that it's more of a 3/4 shot. And it's hard to get the hand in the right place where he's blocking his eye. And then I decide, oh, I really want it blocking his eye, and I decide to rotate him back a little bit. The point being is that the shadow shapes that are on here are describing the form, but where you actually have the light placed describes the composition. So by changing the lighting, you can change the story. You can take something that feels boring and flat, and if you light it properly, you can make it exciting. So the descriptive part is the actual drawing to make it look like whatever you're doing, to make a torso look like a torso, to make a head look like a head, and make a hand look like a hand. That's the descriptive part of lighting. The compositional part is, what is the lighting saying about the story? Maybe it gets really dramatic by doing the exact same form, but lighting it from below like a horror story. Or maybe you decide to do something like he's backlit. Maybe you've got him turned like this, and you're having the light coming at him like that. Now in this, you're pretty much knocked down to silhouette. You're not really describing volume here anymore. But again, this is a compositional choice. It's a dramatic choice. It's not a descriptive choice. So that's what I mean when I say that. And for those watching the video, I hope that I didn't just blind you by shining a light in your face. I apologize if I did. I should have thought of that beforehand. But that is my point. Description and composition, they're more than connected. They're intertwined. They're unified, or at least they should be. They're two separate elements that do two different things, but in the best work, you combine them. So that is your mentorship for today. All right, guys. So again, thanks so much for joining me, spending time here, watching me work on my comics, hearing me jabber on and on. I would love it if you'd go over to patreon.com/Jeremy and subscribe. I'll be posting additional videos on there, exclusive behind the scenes blog posts. You know, if you can spare $1, $2 a month, that'd be great. There's higher tiers for higher rewards. If you'd like to read some of my comics, you can go to comics.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase some, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. I also have a newsletter. That's newsletter.jeremy.net. UL says thanks. You are more than welcome. All right, guys, that's it for now. Go be creative.